It is Mother's Day, and we are about to witness the big Mother's Day moment.
We absolutely are, and I, for one, am both nervous and excited.
Here we go.
It's a beautiful royal blue designer bag that she got at Marshall's for an incredible price.
Oh, Priya's done very well. I mean, look at that woven detailing and the Italian leather.
Forget about that. Look at Mom's face.
We have tears, ladies and gentlemen.
Is that good?
Oh, that's good.
Mom loves it.
And I love that Italian leather.
Fabulous brands.
Feel good prices. Every day at Marshall's.
Hi there, I am Adem Kieras. I am here in Ordu, filled with maddening anger. We continue. Well, again, it is. I'm here in Ordu. We are in the pandemic, for God's sake, and yeah, with fury we start again. It is unbelievable how much time I spent to secure my accounts. Well, apparently it is never enough. Some people just can't let go. Whatever it is, I mean, it is annoying, and I can only advise everyone to invest some money to buy secure phones. It is indeed worth it, especially if you see that your phone camera opens while you are on your phone and is making photos of you. Then you are well aware that the phone you bought was probably not worth the money, worth its money, apparently. However, this happens with all phones. I have hideous experience with Samsung phones. However, I mean, it is annoying in that sense. I mean, I waste a lot of my time actually to secure those damn accounts. However, but it is never secure enough, apparently, as it turned out this week, and it is annoying in that sense. But filled with anger, we continue. We talked about hate. We note that this is that I do not have a clear definition of hate. I want you to go along with me in this journey. It is, if you want, a philosophical journey where we try to inquire hate, what it depends on. And I said that a good approach to hate would be if we do not aim it directly, because then we may some sort of lose track. But in a philosophical way, we try to understand hate. Of course, I mean, I brought some definitions of hate, and those people who might not be familiar with philosophy may wanna ask, yeah, why are we going to inquire a definition of hate? Well, there is indeed a difference between the definition of, there is indeed a difference between a linguistic definition, and this is what you see in dictionaries, whereas there is a difference between, and there are of course philosophical definitions which rather work with understanding. Of course, there are many streams within the philosophy, but I am heavily influenced by hermeneutic. This is especially in the German sphere very known, especially through Heidegger and Gadamer. And this is rather, and as well as in sociology with Max Weber. So we always try to understand things, and hate, I mean, in that sense it makes sense if we are already filled with hate, or in that to try to understand these emotions, because hate is a very powerful emotion, and we were struggling the last episode to some sort of find a bridge. We found a definition where hate would be aroused by fear, anger, or any disturbances whatsoever, and we try to follow that, try to figure that out, and we some sort of, in a way, rushed to one conclusion, and this is that fear is always about your life, that you fear about losing your life, and so on. I mean, we talked about the definition of noxious, which is in a way harmful. However, we said, or I assumed that fear would be some sort of an imminent danger of your life, and then you would kind of ask yourself, I mean, it may sound pretty much severe, but you ask yourself, why live, or what we live for? I mean, the question was, in a situation of fear, if you are thrown into a lion cage whatsoever, why do you fear? What do you miss? And this is indeed a reasonable question if we want to approach fear. I mean, is this only about your life? Do you only think about yourself, about your own future, about your plans? This would mean, I mean, if you're a young man, do you fear of not living those experiences? But then we said this would mean that old people would not have anything to live for, or in general, other people would not have anything to look for, and this is something we then denied. So it has nothing to do with life. It has partially to do with plans. We will inquire further, but one thing we some sort of concluded is the situation. We said that fear is something which has to be fought in history, or we have to think it in terms that it lasts longer. It is nothing out of an incident. So there has to be some sort of a history of it. I mean, if you fear of being alone, or if you fear of the darkness, there is indeed some sort of history, and as well as if you fear anything, whatever it is, then especially if you try to avoid it, if you make plans to try to avoid something, then you are already thinking about it, then it is in a way hunting you, whatever it is, and then this has some sort of a tradition history. We I argued that fear therefore is something we have to understand, which lasts longer, which is momentum. You know about that fear has always an object. You fear something, even though it is imaginatory, even though it is subconscious. Those who believe in a subconscious, I mean, I would not say that it is stupid. I mean, that is indeed a subconscious, and I think without a subconscious we would not be able to manage our daily life, because a subconscious is rather memory. It doesn't matter what you think about the psychoanalysis, but the psychoanalysis under Freud, we said, or I said, this is my opinion, that this is rather philosophy. Nevertheless, the psychoanalysis tried to find a way to make the subconscious visible. There is as well as some approaches to C.G. Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, who then founded the analytical psychology. However, in general, there is a subconscious, because without your subconscious, your memory would not work. I mean, if you have been living like me, I mean, I'm over 30. I'm in my 30s. If you have been living as long as I have, or even longer, then you know that all your memory in your past, even if you do not think of it, even though at this very moment I do not know what happened or I do not think about my youth or whatever. Nevertheless, it is part of me. It is in my memory. It is in my subconscious, and whenever I need it, think it, whatever, it is there. So in a way, this memory, we have to say, we have that which works like a subconscious. Indeed, it is questionable whether the psychoanalysis, if they are focused on this sexual desire, whether it is really whether it really leads somewhere or not. Note, there were a lot of people within the psychoanalysis who criticized this approach, this fixation to one point, and we somehow agreed with this. We called it micro-utilitarism, and therefore we try to go beyond this, and we said that fear has an objective. We fear anything we might fear about our future as well. And something we have to add, this is a psychological thing as well. If we assume that a young or that anyone, however, would fear about his future, for example, you are young, you have made your plans for your future. However, we never know whether these plans would have been succeeded whatsoever. And of course, it implies that in a young age, you would have to know what life is, how you live, and so on. So plans, in a way, has nothing to do with it. It is rather the threat itself. And of course, we have then said, or we have to think about the fact, what are your future plans? Your future plans can be something tomorrow, something whatever you wanna be. This is very important. We desire something, we want something, we have this innate motivation of us to be someone. This means that our plans, our ideas of life, these are part of us. So our future is rather something we wanna be, or we have been doing all along. You have been living on this world, you have been living on your place or whatever because of the life you thought fit, because of you thing you want to accomplish, you did not accomplish. Life does not work that way. You cannot always accomplish whatever you want. Sometimes this does not work. Nevertheless, our failures and errors define us as well, so they are part of our future life. In that sense, if we think about it, we have to some sort of detach ourselves from the belief that these future plans or these ideas, what I want to be in the future, would be some sort of separate from me. Not at all. The person you are, or the reason why you are here, why you act in a certain way, these are responsible for your plans whatsoever. So this means you desire something because of your personality. So this desires, plans, whatever has something to do with you. So you might fear for your life because you could lose yourself or your own identity, and this pretty much falls back, or this is where we see, we did not come far, or we did not get far with this thought. Or that we did not come to an understanding. Why would anyone fear death? This is indeed a reasonable question. And then we, of course, want to think, what happened when you think about others too? Is this all egoistic? Do we only think about ourselves in the wake of danger, or do we think about friends, about family? Do we want to see them? One phase of fear is what we have to be, and we will talk about it briefly. And this is, of course, in a way, is fear biological? Is it rather, if you want, a reflex, if you feel, or is it rather something in your brain? Is it something social? This is indeed a very question we will try to figure out, but it somehow is interdependent. Imagine you have a loved one, imagine a love couple or whatever, and in the wake of fear, if you fear for your life or whatever, do you think about your loved ones? Because we heard a lot of people before, some people before they died, that they would think about their closed ones. Some people think about dying, others whatever of pain, about past issues or whatever, but imagine you think about your loved one. What do you fear? Or that something could hurt your loved one, but let's be in this ego perspective. So you fear for your life because assume it that you can't see your loved one ever again, but then you have to be aware. What do you fear? Do you fear that you will not see your loved one again, or do you fear, especially the pleasure? Do you fear in the wake of danger that you will never ever have the pleasure again to be with your loved one, with the person you are be? So this would be egoistic. You are still in your pleasure. Or do you generally fear about the well-being of your loved one? This would be rather psychological, that you still think that the person you love, that the person you care for cannot do without you, or in that sense would do better without you. Either way, you would be deprived from your pleasure, and as well as not seeing them. But what if you are a father, if you're a mother, you are generally worried for your children. This is something we see in the animal kingdom. Parents, especially mothers in the animal kingdom, they go through a lot to protect their children. They do pretty much everything, protect them from perpetrators. And of course, humans are like, we humans are genetically predisposed for not hurting babies, because babies, we talked about beauty briefly. Babies are actually not attractive in that sense, or are not beautiful in that sense. Nevertheless, our brain is predisposed of not hurting them. This is genetically as well as to protect them. So this would mean that it is part of the nature of our natural instinct. So in that way, fear would be then derived existential fear we have for ourselves, fear we have for our offspring, especially if you are a parent and your children are still small, are in need of you. Then of course you would fear your children, or you would of course fear for the well-being of your children. But this is then a little bit confusing, because then fear is objective. Then we have to say fear has a reasonable is rational, reasonable. However, then it is a bit difficult to draw the conclusion of hate. Do you hate then every object which puts your life under threat, or are there specifications? We talked about it. You don't fear well, you fear a lion, but normally you would not hate him. You rather hate the situation you are in. So, and this would of course imply that you understand the situation where you are in. Humans in that sense, they act very irrational. Humans. This is one of the huge difference between humans and animals, and this is that humans act rationally, and irrationally. This is something you would not expect from animals, because in animals is rather, this is how you would say an animal is rather led by its instincts. It is true that there are some smart animals, however, nevertheless, in general, humans being, they can act irrationally in that sense. For example, parents starve to ensure the survival of the parents. This is something you would not find in the animal kingdom. In the animal kingdom, our parents rather eat their children and so on. So this is being human is some sort of different from animals, or that it is not accurate to call humans nothing less than an animal because of the brain. We are indeed a separate species. However, then we of course makes it very difficult then. But of course, we have to say add one thing as well. I mean, to children, and this is of course there are some parents, or in general, that you do not have children out of altruistic or genetic motives. Children is being considered some sort of an extension of you. Many people see children as themselves, a smaller version of themselves. That is, so it's not like that we humans would be genetically predisposed to have children. We see in the Western world that the decline of the birth rates and so on, and as well as children are still considered in some cultures and in some socio-economic backgrounds as a status symbol for man. For man, that children prove your manliness, as well as for women, children prove your womanhood, so on. But of course, there is as well as a deep bond between children, or between parents and their children, because parents usually love their children unconditionally. Unconditional love means that you do not barter, or that you keep not close records as you would do partially do in a love relationship. Yeah, what did your girlfriend buy you or did to you, so that you then uh, matched this expense, so you would not think in that way with children. However, so it can children, or the protection or nurture of children, can have indeed something individualistic as well. So it is not all it is not about your nature. It is not about this willingness to procreate. It is as well as individual fear, or individual understanding. So then we could try to draw the bridge here. I mean, it is reasonable for a parent to fear for their children, or something beyond you, no matter what it is, either if it is altruistic or if it is egoistic. If you see your children of as a part of you, some sort of a smaller version, or whatever of you. However, this means that you care about others as well, and that you would not want that that they get harmed, or that they are being put in a dangerous position where their life is being threatened. And then could you hate something, or could you create something, or hate something which would put your children under constant threat, would make the life of your children in a way unbearable, or whatever. And so there we see that fear goes firstly beyond you. So it is not only about you. You fear for others as well. No matter what it is altruistic. I mean, you can fear as well as for friends. If you have a close emotional bond with someone, of course you fear for their life. We could say as well as you fear for your life, because you could not see them, you could not be with them, you could not feel this emotional bond with them, and so on. But as well as fear, or why you would fear death, would be that you have not that you have this version or this image of you, the person you wanna be, and you do not think fulfilled. You do not think that you have accomplished anything, whatever it is. So your life is always attended in the future. So you do not think in the past. You would not pressure your life living only in the past or thinking about back in the days your life was better. This is not how it works because the past is over. You cannot change the past, so this would not have a motivation for you. It would only have a motivation for you if you some sort of wanted to recreate the past in a way or another, so to relive the past maybe. However, your intentions or your your grasp of life, or that you grab life or wanna fight for your life, is mostly, we assume, it is in the future. You think about the future. You think about the future of yourself. You think about the future of your friends. You think about the your general future experiences, and you think about the person you are. I mean, this is what is very known in the psychoanalysis as object relation, but I think it is very important that it can be very interesting too if we think about the relationship you have with other people as well as with objects. I mean, I want to bring an example, and this is the car. Especially as a man, it is pretty much known that men have a love for cars, but this is rather, or at least, I mean, I grew up in Austria on the countryside. A car is still to this very day a symbol or a statement of course. It is a luxury symbol. A car tells a lot of um, its owner, whatever. However, especially with men always associate themselves with cars. So your car is some sort of, can be part of you, can be seen as extension of you. And believe me, I heard a lot of men comparing themselves, even their character, to the engine of their car. So this was pretty much. So this is pretty much common among men. I mean, I don't know whether this happens among women as well, but I didn't hear it. However, so you could say some sort of I would rather assume with women it is about jewelry, or it is about their own worth and so on. However, a car is a status symbol. It some sort of represents manliness and so on. But of course, this would be something you would call, this is a normal relationship to an object, and I would not assume that you would fear or hate this car in a way or another. I mean, what we are aiming for, or where I'm going with this, is that human relationships are different. It is different in that sense, because if you have a close connection to a car whatsoever, a car cannot disappoint you. A car actually cannot even love you. It is just a car. It is just something you own, you possess. This is what it is. So this means because you possess it, you control it. A car has not its own will, whereas humans, they have. And especially if if you try to maintain a relationship, this is one of the which you are pretty much gifted, because being able to maintain a relationship, this is still when you only see by the rising divorce rates, this is indeed some sort of a secret or secret ingredient. How can you maintain a relationship, especially among lovers? A relationship needs investment. Our relationship is always back and forth. It can be arduous in some instances, and as well as it can be annoying, jealousy, feeling of hate, whatever, and or whether this person wants to control you or in a way or another. I mean, we always think that those relationships they are the worst, which are not unfulfilled. These are the relationships where people quarrel a lot, where there is a lot of jealousy, where these relationships where love is really devoid, and there it could make sense that you, for example, fear that your partner would be some sort of would be able to do without you, would be able to even seek a pleasure without you, because so that you could feel hate, anger, and there is actually a lot of uh, data about it that after breakups there is always violence, or that there is some sort of revenge. This is a very famous example is, for example, revenge porn or whatever, where men and women try to destroy this partner. So there is still felt hate, as well as the fear, of course, that this partner would then enjoy life in a way or without you, and you would be left back. So in that sense, you could say hate, fear and hate correlates. Fear and hate would be then in broken relationships. These people they fear because of the others. They fear because their partners would be better off, and these broken relationships there you could then see the correlation between fear and hate. But of course, if we think about it, this does not make really sense, because this would mean that those people who live in fulfilled relationships would be pretty much easy, or for them it would be easy to die. So, as well as, and we know of course a lot of issues where people actually seeked death, where they didn't want to live any longer because of a broken heart and so on. So this does not mean that someone who is already suffering, or someone who is already struggling with his love partner, that he or she would try to preserve his life, or even then will commit suicide, whatever. But of course, so this is about the relationship. Then I mean, is this really does a relationship in that sense lead to hate? I mean, this is what we would come out the closest, where we would see some sort of the bridge between fear and hate. And then of course we would have to ask further, why could we hate friends or even lovers? I mean, especially with friends, there are of course some, this happens many often. For example, you were close with someone, and then later you are not. So especially in our time with these Facebook friends and so on, so friendship became more loose and superficial. However, but let's think about friends and lovers and so on as well. I mean, we talked about a car as an extension of yourself. I mean, it is some sort of you are being so, and this would of course, I mean, this is what we forgot. But of course, when you think of a car, you would fear that it gets destroyed, that it gets destroyed in a way, whatever, and that it could be even stolen. I mean, and then you could probably hate the persons who stole it, who destroyed it, whatever they did it. So hateful, vengeful, and so on, because this car, and you could then say this car in that sense, when it was some sort of representative of your manhood, when this car was a symbol of your being, and then when it is stolen, when it is destroyed, whatever, then you do not feel very fight anymore, that you do not feel as this man anymore, so that you are devoid of this pleasure, if you want, or that you are devoid of a social recognition, especially if this was a very expensive car. An expensive car comes with a perception, a social perception that you would be wealthy, that you have money enough to spend or waste. It is rather waste your money on these expensive goods, so that you are wealthy, that you're sophisticated, manly, you're the earner, and then it is stolen, it is broken, then you somehow are robbed of this, and there again you would not steal the car, or you would not hate the car, no, you would rather hate the persons or the object, whatever, which are destroyed it. And if we try to apply this to friends and lovers as well, I mean friends especially, friends to this very day, you make mostly friends with people with whom you grow up with. This is your social background. If you're poor, then you will most certainly meet people from this poor area. If you're from the middle class, more likely that you will meet people from the middle class because you socialize with them. I mean, this is where you live. I mean, if you live in a certain area, this has already a huge influence on you, especially if you go to school, you have the same interests and so on. I mean, this is like special sports. This is something you could see in sports. Which sport you watch or depends highly on which social background you have or what social background you have. For example, do you watch soccer, or do you watch car races? Do you watch any other sports, skiing, skydiving, whatever? This has a lot to do with your social background. So in that sense, and as well as with your lovers, so it is way more likely that if you grow up in a special area or whatever, that or with a special social background, that you will most certainly have your choose your lover accordingly. This is some sort of in that sense. Of course, we will talk about this with desire as well, but in a poor neighborhood, you will not. You will rather choose someone whom you assume can manage his life or whatever. So it depends what you desire in a man, in a social background, as well as how he can manage issues. Sorry, issues or things within this social area. For example, if if you're poor, I mean, whether this man or woman, especially their man, can earn money, or whether he has a prospect and so on. This is what women will rather appreciate. However, this means that parents are, this means that friends or friends, lovers, whatever, they are some sort of extension of you. They reflect you. This is what people know as well, that your friends tell about your past and as well as about your future, because this is where you made them. This is what tells about them, and of course then you have the same interests as as them. And what would you fear, or what social fear would that be? What could be stolen from you? Not your value. If we try to compare this to the car was the value, it was stolen from you, and then you are robbed of your being or whatever. And this further we assumed would lead to hate, that you would hate the person who would steal you, or who would probably steal you. And this is then in social relationships. How could we think like that? I mean, what value could you lose, or what could be stolen from you? And this is, of course, your perception of, or your identity, or to make it simple, that you could be ridiculed, that your interests, whatever they some sort of pose a value for you. You have a special taste in whatever it is, in cars, in house, whatever, and then it is being ridiculed. Imagine someone from the upper classes calls you plain or whatever, flashy, whatever it is, and this is some sort of hurtful. You feel slapped, you feel humiliated, but of course you cannot, in a way, escape them. This is part of your identity. So what is stolen from you is actually part of your identity or your self-confidence. Things you put value to, they are ridiculed, they are diminished. This is what you see for the social tensions. You always see this, especially when there are lootings or whatever. In general, so there of course, and this may then arouse hatred to those people who ridicule you, who undermine you, however, and then of course we have to think about fear as well. So that you in your social circle, whatever, of course you are never socialized all alone. So if you're poor, you assume or imagine what life would be if you would be wealthy. I mean, this is what TV is for. This is something you see in the news media or whatever, and then, or at least if you have some thought and fear, you will fear that you in a society or whatever could be ridiculed as plain, whatever it is, as stupid, what have you, and this made fear. You might want to avoid these situations. You don't want to be among certain people, or you don't want to be in high society because you feel displaced, and then this high society, in a way or another, they either they openly undermine or diminish you, but as well as their existence undermines or diminishes you in that way, especially if you live in a society which defines itself through consume, and your status grows. The more things you buy, the more stuff you add on yourself. This is some sort of fetish, what's already known in Marxism, and as well as ego fetish through social media. So you could always see these people who was wearing all those stuffs either from other people pretending to be them. However, so this has created some sort of a fetish. However, here we see it is indeed a social issue, as well as fear is not only about things about things or about a danger in the woods. So if you go in the woods, but as well as is in the society, and here again we have to ask why. I mean, why we some partially answered it. It is about your identity. It is about you being ridiculed, but as well as that we are all have connections and so on. I mean, if you come from a certain area or from a certain socio-economic background, then goods, money, whatever can be already an exclusion. This is we talked a little bit about privileges, especially financial privileges, which has nothing to do with racial privileges or which is primarily about money. There you could be excluded from certain experiences whatsoever, and this then might lead to hate. But then we have to think about another issue here. Why hate? I mean, couldn't you go down a little bit and say, why just not aversion? Because this is what many people would say, if I don't have to be in this society, I could just avoid it. And this is a very interesting issue, and we will follow this the next time. This was Adam Kirbas from Ordu in in this hot July day in the pandemic. I hope you all are doing fine and that you take care of yourself. Bye.
There are more ways to celebrate than ever before at the Jeep Celebration event. Hurry in for great deals today on the only brand that lets you go anywhere and do anything. And right now, get $1,500 total cash allowance on the purchase of a 2022 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4. Don't miss this great offer. Go to Jeep.com to find your local dealer. Hurry into the Jeep Celebration event today. Residency restrictions apply. Must take retail delivery by 5/2/22. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.